All right, I'm going to welcome everybody to another exciting show of California Times. I have my little handcrafted card to open the show up with California Times. And today, with this great high tech Thursday, August 21st, and I'm with Holly. And I didn't, if I got to ask you how to pronounce your last name,
Oh,
Holly.
thank you. That's a very good question. My name Holly means joy or holy, and my last name is Baade. It's an unusual spelling, Baade, but it means joy or so my name means my middle name is Louise, which means battle maiden. So my name means holy battle maiden body.
Wow. Wow. There you
Holly
go.
Beatty,
Rock
for
and
sure.
roll. So,
Yeah,
all right, to anybody who's tuning in, they've already read the titles, they know who you are, but you're a candidate for governor of California.
I
And
am.
wow, it is August 12th, 2021. It's such a short time before this all transpires. And congratulations for being at this point in your life. Um, Tell me, all right, let's just go ahead and jump into, tell me a little bit about Holly. Tell the people a little bit about you that brought you up to this point and yeah, fill us in a little bit.
Well, to get to know me, it takes a little bit of a story. So, why I'm at this critical intersection, this moment in time that's so important to all of us in California. I really see this recall election as this very pivotal moment where California can hold if we move criminality out of our governance and we make room for sincerity and voice for the people. And if California holds and we choose um, to move away from profit, the kind of profit that creates power and influence over human life, and we choose instead to open our hearts and be pioneers, as we always have been, into something more, maybe pioneers of greater consciousness at this time, then we could hold and we could maybe turn the tide. That's what I really feel. We can turn the tide so that not just California, but the nation and the world can have a different outcome of this opportunity to see our individual and collective shadow rise to the surface and allow it to be a purifying time and an opportunity so that the obstacles create greater creativity instead of destruction and uh, the harm of human and planetary life. So that's why I'm here. I'm feeling called to be a part of this journey in a very outspoken and courageous way, which is saying that I'm standing with California and I'm here, and it's important to build bridges instead of continue to have the same consciousness of division. And so I am seeking to connect with people that have different belief systems and different basis upon which they place their sense of identity. And instead to try to find a common middle ground that we can all gather around. And I really feel, for whatever reason, like I've been asked to play this part, but that doesn't make me more significant. It just means that this is the part that I've been asked to play, and we all have an important part to play. So I started off as a high school student wanting to be a newspaper reporter, and I went to college for newspaper writing, and I spent time working in news stations in Sacramento as an intern in television, and then the Sacramento Bee. And I was a writer for also the Richmond Times Dispatch in Richmond, Virginia. So I spent some time as a professional journalist. And what I really discovered was that in journalism, there was a place for um, creative, investigative writing, but mostly the agenda for what was presented to the public came from an editorial board, which was very um, biased. It didn't matter what bias they had, it just was controlled. And so I saw the fabrication of stories on television uh, with with topics that were very divisive. Like during the O.J. Simpson trial, I was an intern and I literally watched Channel 13 in Sacramento fabricate news, and that created more polarity and feeling of heightened intensity. And I also wanted to report on racism in Virginia. I was covering schools at the time, and I was completely denied the ability to do that. So that, along with seeing how the older journalists would drink coffee and then alcohol nonstop and were very unhealthy, led me to leave that career path and choose instead, um, at first, adventure-based outdoor team building. So this is kind of adventure-based learning and sort of the outward bound style of learning, which actually comes out of the military, for learning how to become a more effective leader and innovator and a member of a team um, through simulations of stress. And I did that work for quite some time. And then I rose in that capacity to work with corporations and eventually state government. So between I don't know, 1998 and 2008, so about 10 years, I worked with corporations and government in teaching leadership development, organizational development, innovation, and teamwork. And my clients included the California Department of Transportation, Health and Human Services, the Office of Inspector General. Actually, most every state agency I have helped build greater leadership as a consultant.
That
And
itself, I want to interrupt you just to say something. That itself is pretty amazing. That is interesting. You have
yeah, it's
really,
interesting. It's
you
like,
have really already found yourself connected to this thing that you want to get a hold of. All right, now not have interrupted. Get
yeah.
going. Keep going.
Well, it's an interesting a part of my story because you may not, no one would really guess that to look at me or to look at my work on the internet the last 10 years. um, because what happened in that work, actually, it was when I was consulting with the state of California on a regular basis that I came up against something where I was being paid by the state and people in positions of power to choose to make that purchase to train greater leaders. But what they were asking me to do really was to make them into better robots or followers, and giving lip service to leadership. And what I really found was like great people that went into state service to try and be a part of their community and feel like they were contributing and have a noble cause. And then they felt stifled and they felt asked to not use their brain to make decisions, and they felt frustrated, and then they became very unhealthy personally.
Mm.
So I would be in immersive experiences with these very unhealthy, unhappy people, asking to teach them leadership, which if I really did would get them in trouble and me. So I started to ask myself, well, if these people have control over nothing, but they have control uh, only over themselves, how much control do they have over that? And that led me to another path, which was self-development, personal development. And so I left the work of the corporate trainer and I went into wellness. I opened a yoga studio. I've owned a series of yoga studios, and I've been a life coach, and I still work as an executive coach, but I really focused on helping people to feel like they have the power to be themselves. And then through that, have the capacity to design their lives in a way that offers them joy and balance. So it's really wonderful because I understand the personal journey and I understand the organizational structures, and I can bring both of these to how I uh, am able to I don't even facilitate the voice and the perspective of the people of the state, and then also offer direction and inspiration to create a shared path that we can all get behind and feel is honest and in the people's best interest.
Uh, wow. All right, Holly, you don't have a lot of time before this is all going to just unfold very quickly here in California. Uh,
Yes.
you're up in the foothills of the mountains right now. Are I you just told me you're about to embark on a tour. Tell me about what you've got lined up.
Well, I started a tour on August 4th at sunset on the steps of the state capitol.
Oh, wow.
And I took a moment to walk the grounds and to ask the spirits that guard our land to grant me permission to see if I was worthy to enter the building in a leadership capacity. So that's how I began. And then I just said that I would follow the feeling of affinity, which is the feeling that rises in the heart that tells you which way to go next. And that's what I've been doing. And I'm in Nevada City now, but I've been to the top of Mount Shasta. I've been in Marin, and I'm feeling called next to go through Oakland and Los Angeles. But I also hope to go to most of the Native American reservations, maybe prisons, schools. We're going to see what kind of opens up, what opens up. I'm looking at this as a journey, as a pilgrimage. I feel very confident that there is a possibility I can become the governor. And I feel that if I am the next governor, that the people of California will receive the greatest protection and the greatest empowerment, because that will be my purpose. But I also feel like the journey and being present with this moment is the purpose as well. And so I've been going to local Board of Supervisors meetings. I spoke yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, in Nevada City at the local supervisors meeting, where they passed this new capacity for law enforcement to use drones flying over private property, which is pretty scary. Um, and I spoke against it, and I feel called to go to more local government bodies and see what's happening. I feel like one of the things that we all experience is a great disconnection, and we can't see the bigger picture, the system. So we point our finger at people, but we don't really understand the invisible systems and processes in place. And that's something I really understand very intricately from the work that I've done. So yeah, I'm on a tour, and it's about being with the people and being in the moment and being in the conversation, and we'll see where it takes me.
Now, the fact that you had this beginnings in journalism makes me uh, believe that you have this sort of a questing mind that I think a journalist fundamentally should want to be sort of a detective. You kind of want to uh, see what's really going on. I would hope that that's a prerequisite of being that job. I'm not so sure these days, but uh, as you look at, I mean, the immensity of this state, the giant economy of the world, this uh, high octane manifestation of the 21st century. Um, what comes to what are you gonna what can you point out as three things that you see that you would alter the course of in California if you could try that on?
Well, one of the things I think
Was a
that really
connection here?
differentiates me from other candidates that I've noticed is that I've had a starting place, uh, yeah, vision for which I have to begin this journey and a platform. Um, However, I've also really felt that listening to the people is the whole point. So as I've been going on this journey, interacting with all kinds of people, of different segments, of different economic status, of different races, different religions, I've been listening to find out what's in the heart of the people. And that is informing an evolving uh, platform and an evolving perspective. So the first thing is, I really feel that we are in a state of emergency in California, but not due to anything that has to do with a biological weapon that's been released and subsequent marketing around that to convince people to put toxins in their bodies, but rather it's because we have dishonesty in our governance and we are under assault from that dishonesty and the capacity of the corporate influence that's now really using the state as its security force. And I can go into more detail about that, but essentially, I see the first thing that needs to happen is that whatever powers that the governor has to have people arrested that have been party to the harm that we've all just experienced and the trauma we're still experiencing, it would be, and is my number one priority. The governor is the top cop of the state, and I wouldn't hesitate to use that position in that way. But second of all,
Can you, I'm
what I,
sorry, let
yeah,
me get this first, just go a little bit broader. What are you suggesting there? I didn't quite, the, help me, tell me again, that first. You're saying you're seeing a imposition of a power of the governor of and the state of California. But could you be a little more specific?
well,
I understand that you're the vaccine is probably predominant in your mind right now, but you were talking about uh, then
well,
enforcement.
that's not really an appropriate word for
Mm,
that substance because that word was created to describe something that helps people um, not get something that could make them sick. And that's actually not what that substance is designed to do. And it's not that my focus is on just stating the obvious. Okay, so I'm just bringing some um, observation. Here's some observation about the state of California. We have a $75 billion surplus. Okay, what are we doing with the $75 billion surplus in our budget when we have so many people? We have more people homeless than we've ever had before. We have more likelihood of fire than ever before. We have a drought crisis that is more horrific than ever before. These are just some of the top three issues.
mhm.
What are we doing with the surplus? Are we a for-profit company that is looking to stockpile resources and create scarcity? Or are we a government that uh, takes resources from individuals into a collective pool to then redistribute that collective power that we share together in ways that benefit all of us? That's not being done. We have a $75 billion surplus. That's criminal at this moment in
But
time.
isn't the surplus sort of based on just this year? In fact, isn't the state like in basically like most states in the U.S. Quite a bit in debt with I believe it's well, you know, like I'm pretty sure it's upward of a couple hundred billion or around there, maybe.
It doesn't take advanced accounting to understand how to make a balance sheet have a zero, or at the end of the day, you
Mm,
know, a couple million in the positive, a couple dollars in the positive. In a state, what you want is reciprocity. You want to have an equal outflow and an equal inflow
right.
and a positive cash balance as that's going. You don't want to have super high lows and super high highs, all of this fluctuation. that nobody can understand. So what I'm saying is, right now, the governor who is in charge of this budget has no idea what he is doing when it comes to managing effectively the money of our state. And yes, I am much more qualified to do that because I understand how to make things transparent, which is my first point. I want to just get back, or my second point, I want to go to that for a moment.
Sure.
You see, the thing about our resources is they are complex systems. We have money coming in, we have water coming in, we have food coming in, we have textiles and technology. So we have all of these resources that come in, and then we have them go other places. But if you want to look at the details of any one resource or any one system, you have to go, like you said, I'm interested, I'm a detective. I'm interested in the details. I might be able to understand that with water, but can I put the water question together with the fire question or together with food production questions? Who can do that? We can do that. We have computers that can generate models to show us exactly in a picture how everything is coming in and where it's going. And the first thing that I will do, which really won't even cost any money, is just to create complete transparency over resource intake and outflow. Because the people of the state cannot make informed decisions if they don't know what's happening. All they can do is listen to individual rhetoric and promises and hope, and that hope is lost. That hope is gone for the most part. The faith is gone in people living up to what they'll say that they will do. We need to have an inspiring and a courageous leader. That's true. But what we really need is something in place that gives the power to the people to make informed decisions by being able to bring to the surface information that's already public, but it's obscure. So the first thing I will do is put those that are criminals to be seen for who they are. And the second thing that I will do is to make sure that everybody can see what's happening in the state. I don't think it'll cost any money. As a matter of fact, I think people that know how to do this would do it for free as a service to the state once I help them have access to the information that's already public, but they may not know how to get it. I'm not interested in the same kind of consciousness that we've been working with. We can do so much with community generated creativity and collaboration. It's not about money. It's about unleashing our capacity to work together for the common good.
All right. Now, what?
I know that's a lot of new stuff.
No. There's so much. You got two. I did ask for three.
Yeah, I have one more for you, but
okay, go ahead.
Do you want to hear it now, or do you have some questions?
Well, it's a complicated thing, really. We're dealing with issues of environmental and ecological and human responsibility, right? A relationship to the planet, where we can't keep developing the model that California we've are in and have been emerged in for 100 years of more and more and more and bigger. This would be, I think, the problems are now going to be spiraling a little bit out of control. So how do we, I think that's what you were saying in the beginning. I think that's what you're on top of too. It's like, how do we pull this whole thing back down to earth again a little bit, not without, but I don't know.
Well,
I don't want to take you off track.
my first point is, let's get honest leadership in place. My second point is, let's look at our resources with complete transparency and let the people see it as well. And my third point is balanced decision making, which affects everything. So it's sort of an umbrella to the things you're talking about. But for example, we talk in extremes and with divisive language, in either or ways of looking at things. Either you allow people that have cars to continue using the cars that they've already put their money into and to continue to use what they have, or you require everybody to get an electric car that they have to purchase, or they're not going to have transportation in order to save the planet. Like, the conversation goes something like that. It's volatile. You have discussions of like, on one hand, let's have great individual rights and raise up folks of diversity and who have been marginalized. But on the other hand, let's muzzle or not give voice to those people, because at the same time we're saying, let's raise up and listen to you, we're also saying, you can't assemble, you can't gather and have conversations. You did that all last year. So there's this, there's polarity, there's inconsistency, there's hypocrisy in all of the conversations. What we need to find out is, how do we say yes and? So for example, we all know that it's important to have a free market. That's important because it allows individuals to have creative, entrepreneurial spirit and to be able to open businesses and bring their gifts to others and generate, their dreams into something that can sustain themselves and their families. And the right to have personal property is also essential. We have a right to privacy. We have a right to be able to be in our homes and to enjoy our time with our families that we've worked so hard for. But at the same time, we need social support. We need to have things in place so that no one is on the street homeless. It's not okay to walk by someone who's homeless and to not see them. It just is absolutely not humane. It's not okay. And the fact that we let this go on, and the fact that we don't have social supports, and that we blame or we shame, is not sustainable. And so we have to be able to reconcile creating social supports and having free market and letting them exist side by side. We have to be able to have, and this is another topic, but we have to be able to put money into fire prevention and allowing the tending of the wild spaces, and also have protection for those natural resources at the same time. It's polarity that keeps anything good from happening. We have to find the middle ground. Yeah.
Okay. Let me just. I think we've probably. Didn't set the timer, so I'm kind of lost in what time we are.
Sure.
So we're okay. We can have part A and part B. Let me just throw out a couple of specifics for you. We've got a state plan that sort of come through the Democratic Party, which fundamentally seems to control California now, of mandated housing, where local communities are being, they are giving up or being legislated out of their local zoning and being demanded to build more housing for the housing crisis, quote. Are you aware of what's going on? Have you?
Very. Yeah.
What is your way you've seen it? What are your thoughts on this?
This is a really good specific topic to sort of highlight and understand what I was just speaking about. So for a long time in many communities, for example, I live in Fairfax in Marin County, it's been almost impossible for people to be able to modify their homes and for developers to build reasonable new developments, maybe 5, 10, 20, 30 new units that might go in someplace to fit to fit more in, that is able to be absorbed by the resources. There has been blocks to being able to build reasonably in many towns for a long time because they don't want to have anything change from the town that they live in. So there's a little truth to the idea that many communities have been keeping others from being able to live in them, to move to them by making restrictions for development too stringent. I think they call it not in my own yard or something. There's like a acronym for it. But at the
NIMBY.
same, with that,
Uh, they call people who want to protect
NIMBY,
their backyards NIMBYs.
yeah, NIMBYs.
Yeah,
Well,
that's.
I've definitely seen the truth, the kernel of truth that there are NIMBYs.
I'm
And
one. I'm
okay,
one.
okay, this does exist, and at the same time, um, it's it's multidimensional, but forcing local governments to do anything from the state level by taking away their jurisdiction for their own regional choice, absolutely illegal on so many levels, should not be happening in any way. The only reason why they're doing this is because they're saying it's for emergency, but they've socially engineered this emergency. They, meaning the state legislature, the national political environment, has invented and socially engineered these emergencies. I can come back to that. So they've engineered the emergencies to say that then this is necessary. One way that the emergency has been engineered, for example, another part of the crisis is that, for example, in the Bay Area, this is something people don't understand. When you're living in Fairfax and you buy your home for $400,000 and then 2 years later it's worth $1 million, you think you've won the lottery and you think it's great. But what you don't understand is that that's actually inflation. That's actually rapid inflation. They point to the those that put down or say we shouldn't have social services like a universal basic income because it would raise inflation. Okay, that's a different issue I can talk about, but that kind of inflation doesn't touch at all the inflation that happens from the housing crisis that occurs when we all think we're getting more for our money because our house price increases. But what that does over time is it makes that house, it makes that $400,000 that your house used to be worth now almost be like $30,000 in your pocket. Like, what is the inflation? What I know firsthand is that I pay $4,000 for a place to rent that I should really be paying like $1,600 for, and so it doesn't have the value that I have to pay for it. But what that means is that my purchasing power has eroded because the housing values have gone up. So in our minds, we're taught to think that the housing prices going up when you're a private owner is a good thing. But what all the private owners don't really understand is that you're actually taking money out of your own wallet because over time, your dollar is not worth what it was. And so this is connected to the question you're asking me, because when you say we have to build, like right now in Fairfax, they're saying we need 400 units. it's ridiculous. It's mind-boggling. Like we wouldn't even allow 20 now they want 400. And while there's a water rationing, while there's no water at all, and so now they're saying we need 400. And if the county says no, they start getting fined like something like $250,000. I don't remember the details. Maybe it's like a day or something. And
It's a potential bill. It hasn't passed yet, but it's sitting there waiting for somebody to be governor and veto it immediately, and tell these
well, you
fools
can bet
not to bring these bills up.
I will definitely veto these bills, and not only that, but research who is behind them and see that they have a light shine on them to remove them from places of influence and power. Because what this is really doing now, I've been interested in this subject because where I live, it's a place that could be developed in a positive way. So I've been looking at, you know, in these high rises where you get these little apartments, it's actually not very affordable. Some of them in Nevada, for example, that was just built, range in price from $450,000 to $950,000 for a large apartment. So what we're really talking about is, let me paint you a picture. Instead of having a house that's worth $950,000 where you have several bedrooms and some land to yourself, now you're going to have an apartment, okay? And that apartment is going to have a fob that has a key, and that key is going to be connected to a smart building that's created in a smart way that lets you in and out unless nobody wants to let you in or out. And you're not going to be able to control that. What we're really doing with this legislation is building our own prisons. This is what we have to really understand. It's disguised prisons, moving people off of the rural land, getting them into the high rises. This is not for those who are disenfranchised, that are homeless, that can't afford a place to live right now. There are so many other ways to address this. I'm the first person to say everybody needs a home. And the day after I'm elected governor, everybody will have a home. There will be nobody on the street. I will ensure that. I will ask and beg the California people to help me do it for free. We don't need money. We need will. We need a spiritual, courageous will and a reason to work together because we think it's going to go somewhere. I could go on and on.
I think you're really, now we're hitting the target here. Good work. There's stuff going on. There's this manipulation. There is this the wealth and the people who we're being driven to some place that's not good on the planet in terms of giving up our power and our freedom. And I hope that I believe that you see that, and I hope that anybody who you get close to being a governor of California would see that we need to flip this picture around, that I feel like that we've got to find a way of trusting people once again, and not only just trusting, but making it clear that there is responsibility on our shoulders of how we live and what we do.
Well, what's really neat about what I see, and I know we probably need to wrap up a bit.
Yeah.
What's really neat about what I see is that, okay, so nothing can happen unless there's a kernel of truth. I'll go back to this idea. There is something living in everyone that wants to see people who are homeless have a home, people that don't have food, people that have been disenfranchised be empowered and no longer marginalized. I want that too. But what's happened is that the language that's being used to market and the projects that are being sold under the marketing language for social justice and health and climate change really are being they're being rolled out with an intention for control and for depopulation and for being able to end what some people are now even calling an experiment in freedom, which is not an experiment. It's a natural right? But what I think is great about this is that it's not about fighting. This is a message that I really have to share. It's not about fighting. It's about saying, yes, we do need to address these things. And yes, there is something to making these changes. So instead of saying no, for example, to universal basic income or new housing, I'm saying, yeah, okay, let's do it. But let's do it with a different intention, because this is how we rally everybody together. If you say no to one side, when something is really addressing what is living in people's heart, you polarize. So here's the answer. The answer is to say yes. Yes. Yes to all of it, but yes with intention for health and harmony and happiness for humanity. Yes. And that's why I'm the best choice for governor, because I can help us find that.
Holly, thank you. Awesome. All right, bringing her message to California and to anybody else, anywhere else in the world who needs to listen in, which is probably all of you as well. I want to thank Holly Baade, who is
Baade?
running, did I say it correctly?
Yeah.
Pretty close, who's running for governor. We have an election that's going to be decided on September 14th or 15th, and which is
Actually, you'll have 10 days afterwards to continue to vote. So say yes to mail-in ballots, and
oh
you have 10 days after
wow.
to continue to vote. So we actually, that's great. I got 10 more days. So to the 24th of September, you can continue to vote, and you can vote starting August 16th. So I don't know how that's going to work, but we have a long a window of time to vote. It gives everybody a lot less time to campaign before somebody might choose, which is fairly unlawful. But in any event, yeah.
Thank you, Holly. It's been a pleasure. And
Nice meeting you,
all the
Guy.
best.
My father's name is Guy. I have a sweet spot in my heart for that name.
It's a fine name. It's okay. Every other guy I've met, I've never, there's not that many of us who are actually named Guy, but got a lot of good brothers named Guy, as well as all the other guys. Okay, Holly.
Thank you.
Cheers. All the best. Good luck. Next
Thank you
governor
so
of
much.
California, right here. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.